Greetings, namaste. Welcome to our Autobiography of a Yogi Daily Wisdom webinar. My name is Devarshi. This is Ramesh. We will begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, Beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, Saints of all religions, we humbly bow at Thy feet. O Divine Mother, bless our lives. Help us to remember You always, in our hearts, behind our thoughts. Help us to feel Thee flowing through our actions, through our hands, through our words, through all that we do. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is a chant of Swami Kriyanandaji's to Divine Mother. The words are, when I awake, I will see Thy face. When I awake, I'll see Thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in Thy light. Hand in hand, dancing together in Thy light. And then the second and third stanzas, when I awake, I will end all sorrows. When I awake, I will know Thy joy. And when I awake, I will end all fears. When I awake, I will know Thy love. When I awake, I'll see Thy face. When I awake, I'll see Thy light. When I awake, I'll see Thy face. When I awake, I'll see Thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in Thy light. Hand in hand we're dancing together in Thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in Thy light. Hand in hand we're dancing together in Thy light. When I awake, I'll end all sorrows. When I awake, I'll find Thy joy. When I awake, I'll end all sorrows. When I awake, I'll find Thy joy. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in Thy joy. Hand in hand we're dancing together in Thy joy. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in Thy joy. Hand in hand we're dancing together in Thy joy. When I awake, I'll end all fear. I awake, I'll know Thy love. When I awake, I'll end all fears. When I awake, I'll know Thy love. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in Thy love. Hand in hand we're dancing together in Thy love. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in Thy love. Hand in hand we're dancing together in Thy love. When I awake, I'll see Thy face. When I awake, I'll see Thy light. When I awake, I'll see Thy face. When When I awake, I'll see thy light. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy light. Hand in hand we're dancing together in thy light. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy light. Dancing together in thy light. When I awake, I'll end all sorrows. When I awake, I'll find thy joy. When I awake, I'll end all sorrows. When I awake, I'll find thy joy. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy joy. Hand in hand we're dancing together in thy joy. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy joy. Hand in hand we're dancing together in thy joy. When I awake, I'll end all fear. When I awake, I'll find thy love. When I awake, I'll end all fear. When I awake, I'll know thy love. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy love. Hand in hand we're dancing together in thy love. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy love. Hand in hand we're dancing together in thy love. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy light. Hand in hand we're dancing together in thy light. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy light. Hand in hand we're dancing together in thy light. Mother, awake me from my dream. Mother, awake me in thy light. Hand in hand dancing together in thy light. When I awake, see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light.
Hello friends, so we'll do about a chant and then we'll enter into a meditation for a few minutes. Then we'll begin with our discussion on the quotes from Autobiography of a Yogi daily app. Okay, so this chant is Door of my heart. The words are: Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee night and day. Chant along with this feeling of yearning for the divine, opening our hearts and receiving divine grace. come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide, I seek for thee. Door of my heart, open wide, I seek for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide, I seek for thee. Door of my heart, open wide, I seek for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my Let us prepare ourselves for a short few minutes of meditation. Find a peaceful place. If you have a chair, sit on it away from the back of the chair. Let's tense and relax the body to be completely relaxed during the meditation by double breathing and inhaling and relax. Let go of all physical tensions, all mental tensions. Let go of the worries throughout the day. Be peaceful. Once again. Relax. Now we'll observe the breath without controlling it, letting it flow for a few minutes, and we'll end this brief meditation at 8. Offer your heart's awakened devotion at the spiritual eye, yearning for Divine Mother. If your mind wanders, do not worry. Bring it back gently. Offer it up to the Divine. Om. Om. So welcome friends again. It's a joy to have you all. We are live right now from the Ananda Monastery. Every alternate Fridays at the same time 7:30 to 8:30 we have this webinar sharing the teachings from the Autobiography of a Yogi daily app. So we select some quotes from that app and discuss about them. So the quotes which I have selected for now is from April 12th and it goes like this. Are you able to have a little room where you can close the door and be alone? This is Ram Gopal Mazumdar speaking to young Mukunda when he went to Ram Gopal Mazumdar, meeting him on the way while moving towards Himalayas. So he was telling, are you able to have a little room where you can close the door and be alone? That is your cave, that is your sacred mountain. That is where you will find the kingdom of God. Now a little context to this story. Yogananda ji, brand new in his Guru Sri Yukteswar ji's ashram, was getting, you can say, bogged down by the various ashram duties and college studies. He was still in college at that time and he was getting impatient, like how will I get more time to sit and meditate longer. He was missing the Himalayan experiences which he saw in visions. So he wanted to just meditate long in the Himalayan mountains, and so he left his guru, and that is another story how he left. But he left his guru on the way to the Himalayas and he met Ram Gopal Mazumdar on the way. And Ram Gopal Mazumdar, as you know, is the sleepless saint. That is, he meditated so much and attained so many high states of consciousness that he eventually gave away with his sleep. But we need to focus on what he is giving advice to Mukunda. Basically, he's chastising him for leaving his own guru and going towards a mountain and telling that if you need to find God, you just need a little space where you can be alone and where you can offer yourself to the divine. And I've thought about it a lot because recently for 3 days I went into a seclusion. So I understood what it meant when he said a little room where you can be alone, which is your cave and where you will find the kingdom of God. Like, we don't need to have a perfect environment outside of ourselves. We can't make everything perfect. We might try, everyone does it, people spend lifetimes trying that, but somehow always something is just apart. For example, trying to be comfortable on a sofa, just trying to find the right position, it never works out, isn't it? And so is it with finding the right place for meditation. It's our own attitude which needs changing. Like, we learn that something is wrong within ourselves, and hence when we are alone, when we are in a seclusion, maintaining outward silence, what happens is somehow our thoughts, which are always fuzzy, you can say, or constantly moving because of interaction with everything outside, mobile phone, social media, just other people, and those vibrations, everything is there in our mind, and we may not have a clear picture always. But when we are alone in our own little room or in our own little space where we don't have to interact much, these things settle down in our mind. Everything becomes more clearer. You come to know what your thoughts are, and usually the essential thoughts come to the fore in such situations. It's like a mirror. You can look into the mirror and you see clear what your thought processes are, and it gives you insight into your own nature, what you want, how you can grow, how you can take your next step on the spiritual path, and find God if you're very much into it. Because some people just, let's agree, they are not seeking God directly, but they do want to have a peace of mind to begin with, healthy life, stress-free life. So have some day apart, set apart, where you can just be alone with yourself, maybe one day a week or few hours. Begin with few hours a day, just a day in a week, and just try, experiment. You will know that even maintaining silence, like Mahatma Gandhi ji did for one day every week, just gave him so much power to then influence so many people for good causes. Sometimes people want to go to the Himalayas for finding God. We all have fantasized it at some point in our lives, like going to the mountains, sitting there meditating without any worry and care in the world. And it looks beautiful, and maybe we have tried it in so many lifetimes that those memories pull at us. But God puts us where we need to be so that we can learn the lessons which we haven't yet learned. And that might involve just being at a print shop printing papers daily, or just being a cook cooking food for others, just sharing. You never know what lessons you have to learn. So it's always good to reflect on why you are at a certain place, what lessons you need to learn, and that's the way to God, like doing your dharma wherever you are, offering it all to the God, and you can always gain your much sought solitude within your own being, rather than wanting it to be in Himalayas outside.
This reading is from the April 13th reading from the Autobiography of a Yogi daily wisdom app. The guest is God, a Hindu proverb, has commanded devout observance from time immemorial. This is also the chapter from the Sleepless Saint. And this is a very beautiful saying, and I believe it was inscribed on some ancient temple. It's also been the motto of the Ananda Expanding Light Retreat for the last 50 years in California. The guest is God. And how do we do this? How do we see this? Obviously, it's not the guests only are God, it's all people are God, is what this is saying. And yes, when we are hosting somebody, they are our guest, then we should treat them as divine beings that they are. But in fact, all beings are divine. And there is a practice given by our great masters, given by Swami Kriyanandaji, to try to see the divine in everyone, in everything, but especially in people, because with people it is the greatest tests that we face in life, is with relationships and family and work situations, but it also can be the greatest rewards in our life when we have these divine connections with people, when we are able to serve the divine in others and awaken that divine spark in others. Swami Kriyanandaji, he wrote a document. It was his last will and testament, is what it's called in the West. I don't know if you have the same thing in India, but it's a document that somebody writes so that when they leave the body, they bequeath their belongings, but also give advice. And in Swamiji's case, it was advice to Ananda for the future of Ananda. One piece of advice that he gave, he said, in this very important document, so this was very important to him, for the appointment of Ananda's ministers or acharyas, the primary qualifications are that they be men and women of deep and sincere devotion, of humility, of attunement to the spiritual ray expressed through Ananda, and that they manifest impersonal love for others, an intuitive feeling I define primarily as love for the divine spark that exists in everyone, that soul which aspires eternally towards unity with God. And so Swamiji was saying, especially this part, that everyone who serves as a minister or an acharya, which Swamiji really actually wanted every disciple and every lover of God to serve in that way and to see themselves serving that way, rather than relating to people personally as a human being, but also as your husband, your wife, your friend. Try to relate instead with what he calls impersonal love. We think of impersonal love as, or impersonal as cold, but what he was saying is that you're not relating to the person or the personality, but to the divine spark of God that is in each and every soul on this planet. And so he was advising that when you serve others, whether it's the guest or anybody, serve that light within them, and with love, with warmth, with compassion, with kindness, and do what you can to recognize that light, to feed that light, to encourage that light in the way that you serve others. I will also read a related reading from Autobiography of a Yogi from the April 18. Wrath springs only from thwarted desires. This is Sri Yukteswarji speaking. I do not expect anything from others, so their actions cannot be in opposition to wishes of mine. I would not use you for my own ends. I am happy only in your own true happiness. These words he was speaking to young Mukunda. After he came back, he went to the Himalayas, failed in his search for God there, and after he was gone for a long time, he came back to the Guru, and the Guru welcomed him without any fanfare or any censure or anything, or no wrath or correction. Just, Mukunda, you're back. Let's get back to our sadhana, our daily duties here, just with love, compassion, and kindness. And Mukunda, he was surprised. He was expecting a scolding for neglecting his duties and for sort of going against his Guru. And the Guru was saying, I don't want anything from you, and so you cannot disappoint me in that way, in the traditional way. I want your happiness only. And now that you are back, we can see that your happiness will come very, very soon, which it did. He gave him the experience of samadhi, of cosmic consciousness, within days of this encounter here. And so this is the other thing, is that if we expect too much from others, if we relate to others in terms of what we can get from them, we're always going to be disappointed. People will always disappoint us. It's the way of this world. Swami Kriyanandaji tells a story of picking up a hitchhiker one time. And the hitchhiker really was very poor, obviously was hungry, and he asked Swamiji for some money. And he said, this is just a loan, I'll pay you back someday. And Swamiji gave him the money, and the man said, you must have a lot of faith in humankind to give me this loan. And Swamiji just said, if I had had faith in humankind, I would have lost it long, long ago. And Swamiji told him, I don't expect this money to come back. And even though the man was promising, Swamiji later said he had to do it for his own sake, in order to give to others with no expectation of what was in it for him and what was coming back for him. Again, he was serving the divine light in that soul without any expectation of return and what was in it for him. So this is also just a way to serve others, to give to others. Yes, you don't want people taking advantage of you all the time, but sometimes it might actually be good to give to someone knowing that they're taking advantage, just because for our own sake, just to give, knowing that we are receiving nothing in return, can be a good practice. And this is the practice of the great saints and masters and Swami Sri Yukteswarji in this reading here.
Indeed. And the next quote is, again here, since Yoganandaji got the cosmic experience after coming back to Sri Yukteswarji, he tried once to get it before that from Ram Gopal Mazumdar, and the reply he got was, not exactly the reply, but in the conversation which followed was, well, don't you see, my dear boy, that God is eternity itself. This is Ram Gopal Mazumdar explaining that his 55 years of solitary meditation may not be worthy in the eyes of God. Well, don't you see, my dear boy, that God is eternity itself. Although Babaji assures us, however, that even a little meditation saves one from the dire fear of death and after death states. Now I will move slightly away from the second part of it and focus on the first one, that God is eternity itself. So the very thought that just by meditating even each and every minute of my life will I find God doesn't work that way. It's not a business deal that if I meditate so many amount of hours I will get so many amount of realization and experiences, and you get the point, isn't it? And so we can't bribe God. So how do we go about it? God, Master said, created this universe out of love. And that love is what God wants from us. Not in the sense wanting in an egoic sense, but just the unconditional love, because that is the only thing which God can't take from us, which is ours to give by our own free will. And that is the path to God. Meditation is important, for it prepares us to be able to offer all our love, all our energies single pointedly to God, because we can't offer our love if we don't own it ourselves. That's where meditation comes in. That's where it gives us the control to let go of every other desire except the one for God. And coming to the second part of it, that even a little meditation frees us from the dire fear of death and after death states. And some people, and many of us, when we start out on trying to explore different spiritual theory, theology, we think, is it really going to end in this one lifetime? Like there is this term people use, you only live once, and using that as an excuse, they go on doing all sorts of things which doesn't benefit them in the end. And we don't live only once. We realize that again and again, because we die, then we get reborn, and all those subconscious memories stay within us, and sometimes it's just too much. And that is a meditation helps us to come to terms with it and let go of that fear that after death I will suffer, or that uncertainty, because we get experiences which make us realize that we are much more than this little body, that we are made up of God's love. The peace we experience in meditation is not of the body, it's of higher states. A story I would like to relate in the terms of how can you find God. So God, in the form of Lord Vishnu, I think, once decided to find out his greatest devotee on earth. So he sent out Narada on a scouting mission looking for potential candidates for this award of the highest devotee. So I imagine Ananda must have a short list of potential candidates, and he went about looking at different ones of them. And so he first came across a yogi ascetic, serious ascetic, who had meditated, done tapasya for several years. And so Nada went to him and he was quite impressed. Wow, this man has done so much tapasya for the Lord, and well, this might be just the one. And he just talked with him and he said to him, the Lord is looking for a devotee who is his greatest devotee. And he just said, oh, I have been waiting so long, I have been doing so much tapasya for him. Tell him that I really want to meet him. All this tapasya, it has to be worth something. And Narada noted down everything and took his notes for this candidate and moved on to the next one. And Narada was surprised when he saw the next one, because he thought, is there some inconsistency, some error crept in the records? Because this was a man who was trying to fix a fence, but he was drunk. He was staggering and he wasn't even able to fix the fence, and he was just abusing God because of just not anything working out the way he wanted, and basically the kind of man you would not to be acquainted with. And Narada was just wondering, how did this man come up in the list? But he anyways went to the man and talked with him that the Lord is looking for the greatest devotee. And then he said, then let your Lord know that I have been calling him since a long time and he must come to me. And as if he owned God, and he was just telling that way. And well, Narada noted down, being non-attached to the results, and moved on, and he came back to Lord Vishnu with his list and mentioned everything. So Lord Vishnu told Narada a peculiar thing: go to these two guys and others and tell them I will come to them after I have finished passing elephants through the hole of a needle. Tell this exact word. Well, Narada said, I am used to this kind of stuff, so I will go and tell the same things to them. And he went to the first ascetic, sincere yogi, who had meditated several years, and he said him the exact thing, that the Lord will come to you after will pass elephants through a hole of the needle. And the man was exasperated. He said, what are you telling? Here I am meditating for so many years and the Lord is busy passing elephants through the hole of a needle. I am done with it. And he just left. And well, we might not like that part of it, but that's what happened. And the Narada went to the person who was initially drunk, and this time the Narada said to him the same thing, that the Lord will come after performing that task. And the man started dancing, telling, oh my God, he is the creator of the universe, he can do anything, so he will be here in a second, because how much long will it take to him to do that? And he was just dancing in joy and ecstasy and devotion, and God came to him and he found God. Can you expect it? Not years of meditation, but the single one-pointed devotion to Lord, no matter what, clinging to Lord, letting go of nothing. Even in his most darkest state of drunkenness, he never forgot about Lord. That's the way to God.
Thank you, Ramesh. The Lord obviously has a sense of humor, and there's a reason why. And these two readings that I'm going to put together, both from the chapter An Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. Yoganandaji writes, "The Spirit of God, I realized, is exhaustless bliss. His body is countless tissues of light." This is one of my favorite sentences from that book. The Spirit of God is exhaustless bliss. His body is countless tissues of light. And then Swami Sri Yukteswarji in the same chapter, talking about the Lord. "The Lord has created all men from the limitless joy of His being." We are all created from the limitless joy of God. And sometimes that joy comes across as a sense of humor and teasing us, chiding us, having fun with us. If we really work at it, we can find that joy behind everything in our lives. It's there to be found. There's an expression that Paramahansa Yoganandaji said, and it's a challenging statement, this one that he made. He said that suffering is the absence of joy. And Swami Kriyanandaji said that an editor later changed those words of Yogananda because they were too challenged by that truth, that very simple truth. And they tried to give suffering more of a reality than that, because we've all suffered at some point in our lives. Maybe some are suffering at this very moment. And suffering seems so real. It has a reality, it seems like. And Swami Kriyanandaji was saying that these exact words of Yogananda, he was saying that there is no reality to suffering. It has no intrinsic reality in and of itself. It's simply the absence of joy. And so, again, this is a hard truth because the pains and the sorrows and the things that cause us suffering seem so real and just seem to have their own reality. But Yoganandaji was saying there is no reality to these things and there's no reality to suffering. It's simply when joy is missing from our lives, then we suffer. I had an experience with this, working with this truth, where I had a chronic pain situation that was very extreme. It was quite painful, and there was a nerve in the head. The one type of this condition is called suicide disease because of the intensity of it, and the quality and the extremeness of the pain. And I was dealing with this for a few years, and it was only about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And there was nothing I could do. No medication made the pain go away. And I couldn't even sit up to meditate because it just sapped all my strength. There was nausea. And just the quality of the pain, it was overwhelming, honestly. And I just had no resort. And I tried everything. I tried mentally chanting Hong Sa and mantras and praying. And finally what worked was I just offered myself to God with deep, unconditional devotion, asking nothing in return. I just gave myself at the feet of Divine Mother, and I didn't even pray for this to go away. I just gave her my love because I was reduced to that very simple and basic aspect of myself. I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't even sit up and function during these times. And when I did that completely and fully, I just felt so much overwhelming divine joy. And that suffering went away. The pain was still there, it receded somewhat into the background, but the joy was more compelling, more attractive. And it made me realize that indeed, suffering is only the absence of joy. And the joy is always there. And since then, in other situations, I've just learned always to look for the joy in every moment. And it's there all the time. I think God is bliss. So I associate that bliss with being God. Sri Yukteswarji in this chapter also said, God is ever new joy. And so this joy is playing hide and seek. And if you just keep seeking, just keep looking, always looking, never stop looking for that joy, you will find it there hiding, sometimes behind the restless thoughts. In fact, Yoganandaji said, God is just behind your thoughts. And that means God is very close because our thoughts are right there. And God is just behind those thoughts, not miles and miles behind those thoughts or light years behind those thoughts, just behind those thoughts. So very often it's just simply a matter calming our thoughts, calming our feelings especially. But you'll find that if you work with meditation daily, practice these things, get very still, and look for joy during meditation especially during that time after you've done techniques, after you've done Kriya Yoga or whatever. Just sensitively try to feel that joy that is there. It's not, you're not looking for something outside of yourself. It is there all the time. We were made from it. Again, the Lord has created all men from the limitless joy of His being. We were created from joy. We are that joy. We are that bliss. And you will find that if you just practice at it, of just looking for joy in those moments of stillness, in meditation, when you have a good meditation, you will find that more and more in daily life too, you can start to find that joy. And just look for it in other situations. Sometimes just going in your work or with a friend, you find that joy as humor sometimes. Swami Kriyanandaji, he just had this joyful, infectious laugh and humor because he saw the joy of God in all things. One of his fellow monks at the ashram that he used to live at said to me one time that when Kriyananda was here, the halls rocked with laughter. And that's because, and you saw that with Swamiji, that there was just joy and laughter because God is joy. God is also this humor, not in a giddy outward way, but in a deep, heart-felt way. And so that humor can sometimes be found in difficult situations. But always I have found that even in the most difficult situations in life, if I just stop and look now, it may take time. It's trial and error. Sometimes it's much more difficult than others. But if you really look for that joy, you can find it because God is that joy. We were made from that joy. We are that bliss. We are that joy. And all it takes is just learning how to look for it, how to feel it. And this is why meditation is so important, because in a way, meditation can be seen as simply practice at finding joy inside. And when we practice it enough, we start to find it in other situations during the day, during life, during difficult situations. So try to understand that God is bliss. Read that poem, Samadhi, that Yoganandaji wrote. That word bliss, that word joy, just repeats itself throughout that poem. And even throughout his whole autobiography, you find that the word joy and bliss is just one of the most commonly used words in that book. And so practice this, play with it, look for it especially, and you will start to find it. God is simply playing hide and seek with us. And if you look with deep sincerity, with deep devotional offering, you will start to find that joy in your life more and more over the days, the weeks, and the years. It's simply a matter of sincere yearning, trying, and practice. So may that joy and that bliss of God be with us always, and be with you always, today, tonight, and throughout the coming days. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.